Hey, everybody, welcome to the Particle Accelerator podcast, where we talk to future thinking business leaders about how to innovate and accelerate business growth. I'm here with Linnea, wanted to say it right, Linnea Geis. And Linnea, why don't you introduce yourself, help everybody get to know you a little bit.
Sure, thanks. And thank you for having me. This is a fun opportunity to chat today. So my name is Linnea Geis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of PDI Technologies. And PDI Technologies is the largest provider of software solutions to the really interesting end market that supports the convenience store and convenience retail ecosystem. So if you think about the stores you shop in, the major energy companies that are distributing the fuel and the snacks to that end location, we're a part of kind of every part of the fabric technology of those stores, from the ERP solutions to the distribution and delivery solutions. We also run consumer apps like Gas Buddy and Fuel Rewards, provide security solutions. So it's a really wide swath of technology that we're providing to this really interesting ecosystem.
Cool. I'm excited to learn more about that, but I want to get to know you better. And so what I usually ask folks to get to know them is, what was your first job? Like, my first job was a paper route. So I'm not saying first job out of college. I'm saying, like, what was your first job?
My first real paycheck actually was Kinko's Copies, which is now obviously part of FedEx. But that's a fun question. Yeah, it was, and it was really interesting. There just was one in my town. I grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it was it would have been in the 90s when I was working there, and that was technology back then. You know, the printers were just basically big computers. And one thing that was interesting about that job is they spent 2 weeks onboarding me, even though I was kind of a summer employee. And so I've always thought back to how we do onboarding today and remembered that I sat for 2 weeks kind of learning the core values of the Kinko's organization. But it was a great company and a great business and a fun place to start.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember Kinko's for sure. What toy or hobby did you have as a child that inspired what you do career-wise today?
Oh, geez. I wouldn't really say that it was a hobby or anything that I did as a kid, but for sure the thing that got me into my career today was my college side job. And so when I went to college in North Carolina, and I was working for a restaurant while I was there, and just kind of spending money and all that. And by the time I graduated, I was a pretty long tenured employee there, and so I always had to put the specials in the kitchen system, which again was more technology. And I was applying for kind of normal post-undergrad jobs in regular consulting. And then this company came to Durham and said, hey, we sell this thing called software to restaurants and gas stations. And, this was 2000 at the time. So the tech ecosystem was still, relatively new. And I just had so much to talk about the challenges that I experienced with the technology in my own restaurant that it just became obvious that was going to be a more compelling first job for me out of college. So I joined a company called Radiant Systems, which was the leader in point of sale software to the gas station, restaurant, and movie theater end market, and moved to Atlanta.
Awesome. What was your favorite and least favorite course in college?
Oh, let's see. The thing that's kind of ironic is I have a finance degree now and do a lot of work today with finance. But when I was in college, I really didn't get accounting. It just didn't make sense to me. And it's just amazing what real world experience does, because now I really understand what inventory is, and I understand, just business more. So I would say in college, accounting was probably my least favorite. But I really liked the business classes. I liked the management classes. I was kind of found myself nerding out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny, as we advance, data becomes so much more important to drive our decision making. Kind of the burden of youth is like making decisions more based on emotion or more based on environmental factors. And then as we grow wiser, we kind of like, oh yeah, data. If I use data to drive my decisions, now I'm grounded and I feel more centered. So very cool. What quote from a famous person lives rent-free in your head?
I don't really know who said it, but I say it all the time, which is you just can't control a lot of things, but you can control your effort and your attitude. I tell that to my kids all the time. I tell that to new hires. I tell that to myself sometimes, you can, you can't really control what life throws at you, but you can work your way through it, and you can be someone that people enjoy being in the trenches with. And that goes further, I think, than most people think.
Cool. What was the greatest invention or discovery you feel in the last 300 years?
300 years. Geez, yeah, prepare me for this one. Let's see, 300 years? Gosh, I mean, I don't like, you'd have to say the computer. I mean, it's just like such a huge component of everything we do, but you know, the components of the computer, which component, I don't know. I'll go computer.
Sure, cool. All right, cool. So we'll get into it here. What tech trend significantly impacted your industry, and how did your company respond?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, we're kind of an old company, so we're 40 years old, which is great. It's nice to have a company that has so much heritage, but we've seen a lot of different technology trends come and go. We went through a rebrand a couple years ago, and one of our team members dug up our original tagline at PDI, which was "Doing business electronically," which was so novel 40 years ago that it was worth calling out. But it's kind of funny if you think about what that means today. You already kind of brought it up, which is data is a differentiator for every business, and in particular, big enterprise applications like ours have and leverage just tremendous amounts of data even today. So I think one of the trends that we're experiencing right now is just the revolution of the impact of data, and the possibilities of it, but then also the challenges in really kind of harnessing that data.
Sure. Yeah, you are allowed to say AI on the show. I thought about banning it, but you're allowed to say it. We agree. In my company, we agree that the benefits of AI are really on top of this big data collection energy that happens, right? The machine learning and AI is never going to happen until we collect and organize like vast amounts of data. Are you finding the same to be true?
Yes, for sure. But I'll be kind of picky and specific too a little bit. Thinking maybe I've got a kindred spirit here, but I think data for the sake of data doesn't really get the job done on its own. What our customers really want is that data to turn into an action. So recommend a next order, recommend a delivery route, recommend a discount or an offer to a consumer. And so without the technology that really closes the loop and sort of delivers that business action, then the data on its own is just interesting, but not helpful. And then maybe it's even a liability, or maybe it's costly and expensive to store. And so I would say the importance of data is really only brought to life when you can connect it with some sort of business outcome. And so, it's more than just having the data. It's like being able to use it. And I'd sort of say the same thing about AI, and I'd say it about machine learning. And sometimes people overuse the buzzword when what they really want is a nice, well-tested, well-working algorithm. And that's good too. There's a lot of different kinds of data science and a lot of layers to it. And our technology team will get pretty picky about whether or not you call something machine learning when it's simply not right. Adapting the model as it goes. And I think that's appropriate for, some people to understand that there really is, plenty of space for traditional algorithms.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like a lot of problems AI has gotten the creativity moving to a lot of problems. But when we look at what really is the outcome is really based on a very narrow decision making that even to test, if you were to implement AI to test it, you'd end up saying, well, this is really the decision tree I want it to go through. And then if that's what's going to get you the A+ grade on the testing, then you're just going to narrow it down. And maybe you should have just used statistical decision making anyway. So we're finding that to be true, that we like that it's getting the creative juices flowing, but it's not always, it's to be solution led rather than outcome driven, which is, I think, what you're saying is not the best way to solve problems.
Absolutely. Completely.
So what are 3 technology innovations you're betting on to drive your business growth?
Well, I mean, I do think that it's one thing to sort of to stick on the data trend is really about the interconnectivity of data now. So not only do you want your own data to be useful, you want to be able to combine this data that's coming out of one application with another application. You want to be able to combine proprietary information with off-the-shelf information, and you want to be able to kind of remix data together. And so one of the big technology trends that we're looking at is all the data sharing techniques and tools that are out there. And so sometimes this is as simple as like a really good, robust API. Sometimes it's the shared data lake houses that we build custom with our customers. But there's even cool tools and applications like Snowflake that let you share slices of data quickly and easily, or even create things like data clean rooms that will allow you to protect certain proprietary pieces of information while enriching a data set together. And so for me, one of the things that we're really looking forward to is how can we take data that's been trapped inside of siloed applications and use it across our own enterprise for the betterment of our own products, but then also allow our customers to mix that data in with their own proprietary analysis to create something that's really special. So I'd say that's one.
That's great. That's great. We totally agree. We were a big fan of this lakehouse architecture where the data's just kind of sitting where it's sitting, log files, raw files, it's okay. And then we're using the modern tool set to bring that data out where it can be collaborated and shared on without this huge upfront warehousing step of, hey, I need to take the data, I need to summarize it, I need to put it in the data. Now it needs to come out the BI tool so people can see it in dashboards. We seem to be now cutting through with these data lakes and clean rooms and really getting the collaboration. Like, is this really what we thought it was? Can we answer questions really quickly? It's cool that you guys are experiencing that and really just right on the edge of all of those things like Snowflake, Databricks. These are the kinds of tools that people are loving to use to do that collaboration. Any other technology innovations that are that have you excited right now?
Well, at the risk of sort of buzzwordy, like I think the no-code, low-code framework provides, kind of a faster way to prototype and get new things to the market. So we're like I said, we're a big enterprise software company, and so some things take a long time to build inside of our current architecture. I tell our team all the time that easy stuff's already been done. We're a 40-year-old company, and we have a lot of products. But when someone asks for something, it's usually something that's complicated. But yet there's still so many things that you can do that would be kind of, apps or applets or micro pieces of functionality at the edges of what we do. And so as we modernize our own architecture to kind of set data free and to make, ingress and egress of data easier, that allows for kind of more co-creation of apps. And we don't even have to be the ones with all the great ideas. But I do think that this idea that there's technology frameworks out there that will make it easier for anybody to innovate and then lower cost for a customer to try something new and decide that it works or doesn't work, or it works and they want to double down, or it works but they want to make some changes. That'll just really accelerate the pace of technology adoption. And our market has been a little slower to do that, because if you think about how complicated a gas station is, you've got pumps and point of sales and credit card networks and all these machines, and it's an environment that requires incredible security. And so it's been, I'd say, a little bit less accessible to people who are really trying to kind of innovate rapidly. And so I think that just the concept of how you can launch new solutions fast is going to be a big breakthrough for our overall market.
Yeah, I think that is a big thing to shout out there, is that the barrier is reducing. Startups are pulling up all the time with a unique approach, or they see a problem, they grab some tools from either AWS, they partner well with different solutions, and then they create their unique solution. So yeah, huge, like the barrier is definitely reducing just because there's somebody out there that's done that. As an older company, as a 40-year-old company, do you find that it's a little difficult to kind of change some of the ideas around how to execute? Because my experience has been that when a company is larger and projecting EBITDA and all of those things, that really spinning up and taking care of taking advantage of some of the new, faster to implement technologies becomes a challenge.
Oh, for sure. I mean, although I'm in my 40s, and so I think I'm just going to say that 40s is perfect. It's where you get to take advantage of all of the hard-earned lessons of your life, but you still have, so much kind of energy for the problems that you're solving. And I would say I think our company is a little bit the same way. We've got a lot of great domain expertise, and we deliver mission critical applications, and we take that super seriously. But we also actually have enough money and enough scale to invest in things, and so we try and strike that balance all the time. But when it comes to kind of making change, it really all comes down to the people that you're empowering. And so if you're trying to bring new thinking in, then you need people who've got, some experience and some creativity and some ideas that they want to try. And then you've got to give them the air cover to go and experiment.
Love it. What do you feel like the most significant gaps between your digital ambitions and the realities of today?
Am I allowed to say my own patience?
I love it.
It's I think it's true a little bit. I think it's I would say it's something that people feel you can just see so much potential, and so the idea of like how quickly can we get to this vision is really, our customers say it, I say it, our leadership team says it. And so it's nice to have a real sense of urgency about things, and I think that's great about technology. Technology is moves so fast that you can always find people that are passionate and urgent about trying to bring their vision to life. But I'd say maybe one area that really is an important impediment for us to pay attention to is quality and accuracy, because the things that we're doing and the customers that we serve depend on us being, correct and accurate. And we deliver, for example, an ERP solution, which is kind of like the SAP or the QuickBooks for the industry. People don't want a lot of innovation in how they report the numbers. They want that to be, kind of perfectly accurate. So, but then we've got other solutions like loyalty and consumer-facing applications where we do desire a lot of innovation and we want to move fast. I'd say the duty of care of making sure that something is kind of accurate and correct is an impediment, and especially with new data sets, large data sets that come from a lot of different places. Some of these things we're talking about that are exciting, that introduces a level of complexity that you've really got to think through. Now, not only how do I test an application, but how do I test a data set, and how do I test a data set under a series of conditions, and how do I test a data set under a series of exceptions, and just make sure that when you're feeding models or when you're feeding applications information, that things don't kind of wind up leading the user to an unintended destination.
Yeah.
And then I'd say the second thing that really is a little bit of an impediment is just scalability. So we serve customers with tens or hundreds of thousands of sites sometimes, and millions of users. And so sometimes things that work well in a lab, like a user won't wait to let the calculation come through to design that route. And so then it's kind of, you might as well not have built a new model if you can't run it in a period of time that works for the user.
Yeah, no, totally. We find that as we're creating these new data sets, we lose the ability to refer them to some other system. So we end up having to figure out we can compare it to this system. What's the closest filter or query group that we could implement to at least sanity check, that group. So I agree, the QA, the data QA, and making sure that you have referential integrity with your source systems. And it's a whole nother step in the process, because a lot of times you're creating something new that's not really going to line up with another system. And oftentimes the time to stare and compare with some of their system is cut out. So that's a great call out. And then of course, like scaling. I mean, a single database warehouse that you used to be on may not be enough anymore. So, pulls in other technologies that have new learning curves. What do you think the biggest challenge to maintaining a competitive edge in your industry is, or what is your biggest challenge to maintaining a competitive edge?
Well, newer things always do move faster, right? And so to me, it's about that balance of continuing to deliver innovation for our customers in a way that makes them feel like we're advancing the strategic roadmap. But it is always like, if I ever see anybody that's entering our market for the first time, it feels like you can see them move so fast, so quickly, because they're focused on, usually one thing, one small part of the industry, one small problem, one small persona, and you can just watch that momentum build. And we, on the other hand, are balancing a more complex portfolio. So I think it's making sure that we allow the right amount of, innovation and experimentation and time in our roadmap to do those kinds of things. But then ultimately it's about serving your customers well. I mean, if they feel like you're listening to them and taking care of them, then they'll give you that chance and continue to build that relationship. And it almost doesn't matter how innovative your stuff is. If they're not satisfied with the relationship, then they'll find themselves, looking for other things to fund. And the customer funding is really kind of the ultimate arbiter of, whether or not you're going to get to continue to advance your mission.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, as you go up funnel working with more enterprise customers, they always have longer lists of features. So at some point you kind of leave the small guys behind and you just say, hey, we're gonna be the leaders in this space, and we're gonna go for some breadth and tackle the startup guys will be able to tackle a piece. But the idea that they would be able to go wide is tough. So that makes a lot of sense. And can't say how much I agree with you enough that listening to the customer and kind of tailoring, which is a great segue into the next question. What advice or what experience do you have, or how do you guys approach that, where you're trying to connect the technology roadmap with your overall business strategy?
Well, I mean, I think that's hard, and if anybody's figured it out, then, maybe please let me know. So if you get those podcast guests that say, I know how to do it, please put us all in a community. Cause I think it's something that's really hard. But I think it really comes back to people, that you put in place. Cause there isn't really, in my opinion, kind of like a single right way or even a universal best way. There are some kind of better practices and best practices, but really I kind of think you have to break every problem down to what's the problem that you're trying to solve, right? Are you trying to get something really hard, kind of over the goal line and you need intense focus? Are you trying to get something very deeply technical done and you need domain expertise that you don't have? Are you trying to get something done that requires a lot of coordination? And so like every era of our business has been and has seen all these things at one point, and today with dozens of products that we support, each one of them is experiencing a variety of things. And so we all try and think about what is it that we're actually trying to achieve here, and then get the right organization around it. But then ultimately the solve for the problem is people. It's mostly, do you have the right people in place? Do they have the right ownership? Accountability? Do they have the right air cover? Do they have sufficient budget? Do they have the autonomy that they need, the ear of the folks that they need to collaborate with? And so, for me, ultimately, the answer for how you connect business and technology is with old-fashioned human beings talking to each other. It might not be a sexy answer, but
no, that's fine. I'm always do you guys follow a SMART goals or an OKRs, or how do you guys kind of structure your overall strategy? And that may not be just technology, but do you guys follow a methodology there?
Yeah, not everybody follows it. We have 2,000 people, and I can't get everybody to sort of coalesce around one thing. But I'd say what we really do try and do is lock off on our big rocks. The big rocks going first, and then the pebbles, and then fill it with the sand. And so what's really most important is to get crisp on the 5 or 6 big things. And sometimes, like you said, they're product things, and sometimes they're operational challenges, and sometimes they're market expansion or something like that. Sometimes it's getting an acquisition done. But we need our key leaders that are focused on what the small handful of things are. But then again, there's 2,000 people in the organization, and some of them may be working on something that's very important, even if it's not one of those big rocks. And so we've been working on OKRs for a number of years, and we've rolled out some tools. And I'd say we've got mixed adoption, but where we have good adoption, it works really well. And we've done it in Excel, we've done it in tools. But really the other thing too is that leadership has to show that they care about a certain number of things, and then you speak about those things frequently, and then that's kind of what helps to get the message through and keep people aligned.
Yeah, I love it. I'm kind of I'm kind of on a bunny trail here, because I've been such a student of some of these ideas around time compression. So I think EOS is leading a charge around, and I'm reading this book, 12-Week Year. And just there's a bunch of theories of time compression. And my hypothesis is that the annual planning is broken. But I'm still cautious, because annual planning is at the highest level gives a little bit of time for the teammates, the people, like you said, to kind of, okay, this is what we're doing this year. Let me get behind this. But I'm seeing organizations do time compression and do more detailed planning in a quarterly way, breaking up the quarter a little more granularly. My concern is that larger company executives kind of weaponize this to overpressurize the team. I'm using it more as a way of driving myself, thinking, hey, what can I accomplish in a quarter rather than waiting the whole year? And my teammates are still kind of adopting to this. So I think we'll see a trendy, some kind of coalescing of these ideas around time compression. So not doing this thing where a quarter in, we're kind of thinking, oh, we got plenty of time. And then half year, we're like, we're behind, but I still have the backup. And then we're just like destroying ourselves in the last 2 quarters of the year to try to hit this target we set in January or whenever the beginning of our fiscal year is. So I'm interested, and that's why I kind of went on a trail here to ask the question, because I'm super curious if organizations are starting to feel that they need to, compress time and kind of hold things a little more tightly.
Well, I mean, I think I agree with you. I'd say we're sort of seeing the same thing, but maybe operating around it a little differently, in that we try and do our planning on a rolling basis. And this does not work. And I'm trying hard. Like, we try hard every year. We come in and we say we do a rolling forecast, and we do. So at the end of every first quarter, we forecast the first quarter of next year. And so we're not in this like annual budgeting process where you kind of have to sort of try and remember what happened at the beginning of the year and think about what you're, I don't know, false expectations you're going to put on that year. You're really trying to say, like, I'm going to take it piece by piece. And so Q1 is now over. And now I'm going to report the news on Q1. I'm going to forecast the rest of the year. And then I'm also going to forecast the first quarter of the upcoming year, because I'm going to see that some stuff will have slipped. And I'm also going to see, like, the deals that I booked here are going to now renew. And I'm going to understand, having just come through the first quarter, what are my anomalies that I need to account for? And then you get through your second quarter and you sort of do the same thing. And we're better at doing that with our financials, not perfect. But then now that can start to pull through some more of the cadence of the business. And so then you can start to say a little bit less of, and this is a luxury, we're a private company, so this is when we've got great investors. And so then we can start to say, like, let's not lose sight of the big goal, and let's not artificially try and, do something that's got some unintended consequences without thinking, like, look, we've got the next 12 months. What are we going to do? We've got the next quarter. And so some of the OKR thinking that tries to encourage you to think about objectives being longer term, and then key results are things that you can kind of bite-sized chunk up, I think are really helpful. But one of the things that we're kind of bringing back is we're bringing back more of an annual holistic product, holistic view of our product plan, so that when we go off into our quarterly, our quarterly sprints and our quarterly cadence and our smaller product teams, we don't lose sight of what we really kind of stacked hands on as the vision and the budget behind certain big initiatives. So we're still, I think, always trying to find that balance. But I found that the rolling concept makes sense to me, in the sense that, like, the end of the year is kind of artificial, and it matters for the way you report your results, and it matters for a lot of things, but it also forces you to kind of just continue to be lifting your eyes up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the public market would definitely agree, because you got to do, like, at least quarterly reports if you're public. So that makes a lot of sense. But give the financial folks, like, a wider window to say, like, okay, well, we'll make sure that these kinds of resources are available to you. Totally good guidance. I really appreciate that. Let's talk about how do you approach risk when you're implementing a new technology?
Well, it sort of depends on what it is and where it is and where it's going, and so it depends. But one of the things I would say in general is we try and create a culture of smart risk taking. And I think if you don't have a big culture that allows for risk, which means you've got a culture that allows for failure, you won't attract people who are truly curious, and you won't try anything that's really cool and new. You'll just incentivize people to kind of stay safe. And so if you don't have some tolerance for risk, then you're not going to attract people that are as innovative and creative as they could be. And so I think you've got to open up a little bit of permissibility to do that. But then that means you've got to sort of figure out where you can take those risks. So there's certain kinds of products, like I mentioned, where it's a little easier to say, the risk of having something not work out is not so great. So maybe it's just people didn't like it. Okay, that's not like a really bad risk. Maybe it didn't generate the revenue it was supposed to. Okay, that's like a medium risk. Like I've got now a financial problem that I have to solve, but do I have other opportunities that kind of balance out my risks? But then there's something that's like, okay, well, maybe it's like around customer data, or maybe we're implementing something new. Like we talked about Snowflake in the beginning. We're doing a lot of work with data. We're very careful on that and trying to take like almost no risk. Which isn't really possible, but we're really tight on the team and the amount of governance and the amount of eyes that go into something that touches data, because it's just really, really important, and the scale of it is huge. And so then it's really just kind of about, I think, applying a good amount of how much oversight something needs. And so if the implications of something, like I said, is not enterprise catastrophe, well, then let people run, and then, by the way, encourage people to say, hey, here's why it didn't work out, so that everybody else can learn from that. Because if you sort of hide the idea that things didn't work, you never get the learnings, and then you don't really create that culture around curiosity and innovation.
I love that. That's so good. We implement this concept of blameless postmortems, right? Where like, hey, let's just replay the order of events, even when somebody comes in and says, yeah, I know I did this wrong. We're really thinking about the system around the failure, not as much and comparing that with like, okay, well, what kinds of steps did the humans have to take in the process, and how can we remove some of those steps? I know healthcare went through a major transition. They used to have all the medicines in alphabetical order. So something that could help you was right next to something that could kill you. And then, of course, the first ER nurse that grabs the wrong thing, her life is ruined from being, some kind of malpractice. And she admits, like, I grabbed the wrong thing, I gave the wrong medicine. And then finally, we kind of step back and go, well, these two things should not be sitting next to each other. That's far too easy of a mistake to make. And so by thinking about the system, we love to like take those learnings from the failure. But if those failures never happen, then you never learn those things. So totally agree. What lessons have you learned from tech initiatives or projects that failed to deliver their expected value?
Well, let's see. I mean, I think it's kind of the first attempt in learning, which I think is a little bit of what you're getting to. And I don't know who said that either, but it's, the sort of failure puts you on the path to getting somewhere. And so if you kind of have that attitude, then I think that's good. I would say if I were to break down a few things that I've learned from things that didn't go as well as I would have wanted, I would say kind of the value of quick wins, even if the journey is a long one. So sometimes, especially in technology, you're doing something, really big, right? And if you're doing something really big, then there's this kind of big bang at the end. And this is a little bit of what the Agile framework tried to introduce, which is trying to get some feedback along the way. And I'd say it's true not only in terms of feedback, but in terms of finding wins. And so even if you've got a project that like for example, we're doing a big implementation of Salesforce. We've acquired 29 companies in our history. And so the idea that we've got to harmonize a lot of data, there's always something going on there. But let's build a roadmap in a way that we're releasing value into the enterprise, early and quickly and frequently, so that people are feeling like they can see the progress, even though, there's probably a lot more going on under the surface than the stakeholders can fully appreciate. But if there's this perception that nothing's happening, then that winds up being ultimately, I think, pretty detrimental for a project, because then at some point someone just gets frustrated, or maybe something does get revealed and it's not what you thought was the first one. And then the second one, which kind of goes along with the first, is this idea of visible customer benefit. So I'm always trying to think about things like, in technology, there's a lot of reasons to champion an idea, right? Something might make something faster or easier to implement or cheaper on our side, but we really have to always be thinking about how are we going to show the customer that this is beneficial for them. And sometimes the customer is a stakeholder that's not a paying customer, it's an internal team that's benefiting from this, but like constantly keep the benefit that somebody is expecting to realize, and so that you're not doing technology for the sake of technology. That's the thing that I've learned. And then the third one would just be the importance of formal and informal champions and champions and peer leaders throughout the organization. Those are the things that are really critical to get something that's important done. So you can't just rely on your budget and your boss being the air cover that you need. If you're really working on something that's new or different or complicated, then finding your champions wherever they may be. Maybe it's someone who's smart and can help you brainstorm ideas, or someone who has the ear of a department that can help you be successful, or someone who has a trusted relationship with a customer that gives you a soft spot to test things. So just building out a really good network of informal advisors as well as formal support is, I think, really helpful for initiatives.
Yeah, that's so good. The releasing often, showing progress as you go, making sure there's key stakeholders and ownership. All those are great nuggets. How do you cultivate a culture of innovation and digital fluency in your organization?
Well, that's a really good question too. And I think you really can't force it. It's the thing that you can't kind of make it so. You have to, like you said, nurture it. And I think, again, it all just comes back to people. You have to have people that are inspired and passionate themselves about uncovering new tools to learn and about applying new technologies and about creating new things that don't exist before. And then you've got to leverage the power of that peer pressure and peer influence to get things over the hump. So the things that have been most powerful for us is when we get somebody to say, all right, you tell us, how are you using AI today? And you tell us how you implemented some new technology, and you tell us about this problem that you had and what you did to solve it. And so our kind of internal demo days are the things that make people think, well, wait a minute, like, why am I not, out there trying something? And why am I not doing an innovation sprint every quarter to try and get some new thinking and ideas out of the team? And so it's really, for me, it's about, you got to leverage the peer network and the kind of the peer pressure and the peer encouragement to do it, because it's not tops down.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really good. I have a question kind of back on your last thing, because you guys are such a large organization and you're releasing things iteratively, and people are kind of managing their digital journey and getting more fluent. How do you find that when you make those first couple of releases, do you find that there's like this is it kind of response from some folks, or are they just super excited that like they're getting included in the process? What does that feel like in your organization? And what are some pain points there just around starting to influence change and get folks to adopt it?
Well, we are pretty customer focused. And so I would say that this is it moments usually come from when we've met a customer milestone. And so we're trying to get a customer live on something, and we've designed some feature or some functionality that they really need. And so the this is it moment usually comes from when we've made them happy, to be honest. Like, we celebrate those wins. Those milestones are kind of what keep us going. And a lot of the relationships that we've had with customers, we've had for a really, really long time. And so we feel great ownership in delivering things that work. So I would say, and maybe I'm just answering for like the teams that I see, but I'm sure that there's a of the this is it. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but yeah, I would say there is a really great, there is great. One of the things that I love the most about this end market that we serve is you get to see your stuff live in the field. And so you can go to a Circle K down the street and you can buy a snack and a drink and use a loyalty card and pay with integrated credit and have that rung up on a point of sale and have the fuel get decremented from inventory. And we do that every day. And you can peek your head in the back office and see people using a PDI system to do their daily tasks. And that's really rewarding. And so I think another one of this is a moment when you can kind of just,
that's really cool.
That you go, every day and get to see your stuff being used.
Yeah, that's really cool. Your mom can use it. I think that's, as a software guy, that's always been the greatest. Like my favorite projects have been the ones that my mom can experience. Cool.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
What is a shared experience? I find people don't love getting advice, but what is a shared experience or something you would say to folks starting their digital career?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it would go back to the first one, which is you can control your effort and your attitude and not much else, and so I would just say always try and put yourself in positions where, you're say to other people to feel better is just aware sort of the perils of perfectionism. I know a lot of type A people, and tech attracts a lot of type A people, and business attracts a lot of type A people. And some of the things that a drive for perfectionism will encourage are, analysis paralysis, or avoiding things that are unfamiliar, or being safe, or being unwilling to take a risk. And there's so much cool stuff that happens at kind of the frontier of technology, at the frontier of any ecosystem. And I've always learned so much by just being willing to say that I'll do something that like no one else has really quite figured out yet. And the great thing about that is there's not really a good benchmark for like how it works out. And so you can kind of chart your own course a little bit. And I still have to kind of tell myself all the time to beware the need to be perfect. But there's just so much that happens if you're willing for everything to go a little bit not right. You just learn way more that way.
Yeah, we have a lot of professionally challenging things in our culture. We are kind of a special operators group, so asset of skill rather than the asset of labor. So we have some things built into our culture that are somewhat there's a certain standard, right? And it's less of a standard of the kind of the minimum standard like your PT test in the Army. It's more of like a whatever it takes kind of a standard. And what we find is that oftentimes when I share that with folks, they're like, well, no, you need to be way more way more accepting and kind of inclusive and nurturing with your people. And one of my hypotheses is that the largest source of discomfort for us as professionals is imposter syndrome. And the way to overcome that is challenge, right? So if you have a standard and you have challenge and you see that you can do this, that's the greatest source of eliminating discomfort in the workplace. Oh, I can do this. And I can do this better and faster than I ever thought possible. And helping people get to that, I think, is key. Like, I care about you more than I care about your feelings, is kind of one of our kind of mantras, because we feel like if we can eliminate those internal feelings of discomfort, then the cultural ones that we implement are kind of what it means to be a professional. So.
Yeah, totally. I like that. That's a good one.
Cool. I think this has been great. It's been great to have you. If people like what you had to share today and they wanted to connect with you, how could they do that?
I'm always on LinkedIn. I love finding people on LinkedIn. I post there. I like other people's posts. I try and respond to stuff there. So I'd say find me on LinkedIn. I've got an unusual name, Linnea Geist, and so it's pretty easy to find me there. That's probably the best way. That's probably the best way to reach me.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that your LinkedIn is in the show notes, and we really appreciate your time today. It's been a great session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun to get to know you.